Good night, everybody. It's Wednesday. We're having a good evening, whatever you're up to. It's Meredith from the Backyard Caring Program, and I am at the Grow Garden, which is now part of the Guelph Tool Library. We're located up in Marden. Let me give you a awesome virtual tour in the garden. It's an absolutely beautiful night to be outside in the garden, whether it's yours or in the Grow Garden. Not too hot, not too cold, not getting super sweaty today. No sunburns, just good vibes. So let me switch the camera around, put my holder in, and start showing you around. So let's start at the very beginning. Just over for me to put my tripod in so I can kind of walk and talk. If you have any questions during this live stream about gardening, conundrums, problem solving questions, etc., or things that you see in the garden, let me know. At the front here we have two recycled tire planters made from old Jeep tires. They're painted blue and green to kind of look like a flower. It kind of reminds me of a blueberry. I picked these up for free on Facebook Marketplace and brought them out to the garden. We put some kind of flowers in there next year. And then we have this awesome cattle panel that we just installed not too long ago. We've got some tomatoes growing up it, and I'm hoping in future years to really have this completely covered and dominated with vegetation to make this really cool entry archway. We have like a weed area that's like a buffer before our garden that we need to work on. But really the size at this point is like a small farm. So the management has changed, and it's time to get a little bit more farmy up in this garden. We usually line all the paths with mulch, but because of the rain this year, it's been absolutely wild. I'll wait for some other people to join us, but I'm just going to go slow. There is a lot to cover. We have over 15 plots, which I'm going to walk kind of through everything, plus donation areas and other stuff. So there's a lot to see. We picked up these boxes from a manufacturer that was giving them away for $5. Well, I guess we bought them for that much, but they gave us a pretty good rate. And we have about 25 to 30 of them now at the garden. Not sure how long they'll last. They're not obviously as sturdy as a regular raised bed, but pretty darn nice and deep, perfect for things. Little, makeshift raised beds we can just move around. Okay, so then we have like these skinny raised beds that kind of make the front here. Bear in mind, things are weedy as heck, so it's gonna be a little hard. We got a sunflower here, some calendula, it looks like some edible flowers. We did have that here in the past, so I think that's kind of what's just reseeded here. Nothing too exciting. We've got some random tomatoes in the ground and a huge patch of strawberries, which is about done. They're really small, but they taste really good and are super fragrant. This is our first kind of donation raised bed that has just tomatoes in it, looks like it. I think a lot of them just have tomatoes because we had so many extras from the sale. And there's some other stuff in here, but looking a little yellow, which tells me that they are a little bit nutrient deprived in here. Maybe some calcium is missing, or maybe they went dry a little too many times, which we'll have to monitor. But otherwise, the new foliage looks pretty healthy. There are seeds from things everywhere today. And some potatoes in this first kind of raised bed. Nasturtiums, various things, forage. We had a lot of volunteers we decided to keep from things just self-seeding. You can kind of see there. There's some borage and some baby borage on the ground all over the place. And that's where the seeds are flowing away from, which is great. The seed library has installed a bunch of raised beds that go kind of up and along the side. Some of them are full, some of them are not. It's an ongoing project, so we'll see where we end up at the end of the year. But the whole premise with these raised beds over here that I'm pointing to along here are for growing seed for the seed library and making sure that we have lots of fresh seed available for next year. especially things that people are requesting. So I know there's a lot of basils and different peppers and things that do really well in this area. We've got a plot here that I'm right in front of that has lots of peppers. They're doing quite well despite being shaded by this small fruit tree. But there's a ton of peppers in there that look really good. Hasn't been a fantastic year for peppers, a little wet, a little too cold because of that wetness. Here we got a bee. Loving the borage, and that's why you want borage around. Bees absolutely love it. Doesn't want to focus on the bee. It's always good to encourage bees and pollinators. Usually this is actually quite full of pollinators. This is asparagus at the end of the season. It goes yellow before it's fully done, but we actually have some seeds on here and some flowers at the top. And holy, it is tall. The tallest one up there looks to be about, getting up there of 10 feet. Some beetles. But it looks really cool. Very dense, huge forest of asparagus. My shadow in there. But that's what it looks like. We are planning on moving it out of here because it does take a lot of room out of our main garden to have this much asparagus kind of in this zone. So we're planning on making a much larger bed and kind of divvying up some of those crowns. Another donation raised bed, which also looking really awesome. It's kind of a volunteer sunflower. And then we have tomatoes, lots of tomatoes, and some peas that look really, really good. Great year for peas. It's been a little hot sometimes, but these look fantastic. They're actually going past, so they shouldn't go too much taller. We've been picking these and donating these for at least 3 weeks already. So I'm just excited to see how much those keep growing. Definitely trying to go more vertical with a lot of our crops this year, just to make the most of our space. Even though we have quite a bit of space, we've basically filled it all this year. We've got some onions in here. We usually put garlic. Now this is supposed to be greens, and it is a hot mess by the look of it. So this is all gonna have to be weeded out. That's why we have the raised beds, so at least the raised beds are clean. Peppers. This had garlic in it, this bed right here that we harvested. And there is some new kale and looks like onions in here, trying its best. A short variety of peas in this box and some various things. This is actually, I think this is the seed libraries box as well. So these will be for saving seed. It looked like a super dwarf pea variety to me. This is kind of a random raised bed that has some tomatillo, which looks a little munched more than I would like, but that basically rounds off the donation area. We have a really nice pavilion structure, shade structure at the garden with some hops on the corner and some honeysuckle. We rescued this honeysuckle from like a condemned property, and all the little pots and found things were all like free or found at the side of the road. Definitely a lot of recycling going on up here. This artwork was made by a local artist who represents water, which is cool. So it's bringing us definitely good watering vibes this year. That's our big sign. Just want to come over to the hops. The back of the property is kind of like in between the neighbor and this property is a just wild meadow tree line. A lot of dead trees in it actually that need to come down. I think pretty much all of these are dead, which is interesting, but there is a lot of moisture back there, so that could be why. But this hops is looking crazy. We only planted it 3 years ago. It did not nearly get that high last year. It is going wild. We are going to have to expand where it can grow up because it's actually growing, if you can see, like all the way over there down the gutter. So maybe not ideal in terms of reaching the hops in the end, but it looks like we'll be able to get a solid bucket or two out of this. Again, I'm gonna give the rain some credit on that. But yeah, this area, kind of the shelter and beyond, we've got some plots here for some members, which I'll show you in a bit. Really good looking stuff. You can even see the scarlet runners from here. But then we see the seed library project. Anything beyond this was known as our orchard space, and a lot of our trees have diseases or having issues with kind of the harsh conditions of being planted out here, where every kind of weather, snow, wind comes up over this hill from the road and just directly onto what's ever here. So the wind is quite severe. You can see this tree is leaning quite a bit. And normally we don't have this much rain, and I find that the fruit trees really struggle. So we're struggling to keep them healthy when it's that dry. But some of them jump back. This one has some black tree rot, so it has to go. But this cherry did pretty well this year. And we're only planted about 4 years ago. So definitely worth doing if you're trying to set up a garden early. We've got a plot that was put out here just this year using kind of a no-dig style technique, which I absolutely recommend. And in terms of what we have out here and adding more folks, is a lot of wildflower, a lot of fallow ground, and gravel underneath. So it's pretty essential that anyone joining us and getting a plot out here does the no-till technique and add soil on top just to get ahead. And then we do a lot of mulching. So yeah, this plot looks absolutely fantastic. I don't know if it's the rain or the amount of birds that we seem to be getting, but we're not having too much trouble, at least on this end, with bugs attacking our vegetables like we have in the past. I find that the pests are quite mild this year. I don't want to jinx it, but they've been pretty good. We've got like a Savoy cabbage, some red cabbage, looking very happy and large in here. And then tomatoes going absolutely wild. That will be a challenge to harvest for this person, but they look great. Maybe we weren't expecting them to be quite this big, but some pretty good looking squash and things going well over in this plot. Their own asparagus, which kind of shows you how long it takes. These were just planted this year, and it does take about 4 or 5 years to get asparagus growing to the size of harvest. So good to start early. But that's all we have out in the orchard. The rest is just fallow. We did have this all mulched at one point, but wasn't a great way to work. But we've got a lot of wildlife now, rabbits and snakes and things. I do have some cactus out here, quite a bit of cactus, but we have a thistle problem around the cactus, so I have to get in the spikies to free the spikies as it goes. Yeah, lots of big bugs, lots of more wildlife coming out here, which I think is good, and it might be part of what is causing our good fortune with pests this year. Now this is interesting and something new. I knew that there was tomato volunteers out here, but I had no idea that they were this developed. So this is interesting. This one has a single tomato on it that is orange. It's like 6 inches high. And then this one has one red tomato on it that's split and just came off like nothing. But it's got a couple more there, just growing in the ground. Maybe they were stuck out here. I really have no idea. But that's interesting. So here we go. Maybe I'll pick that orange one since it tried so hard. All right. There's my little dog. So we're back in this one plot. Lots of nice tomatoes. Like, tomatoes are just happy this year. This Swiss chard looks amazing. This is like a ruby red rhubarb type Swiss chard. No taste difference, just wow with the red veins. And this is why Swiss chard is so awesome. It has kind of a slightly more intense spinachy flavor if you're not familiar with eating it. Really great blanched. A little intense raw, I find, but I just love it roasted because you can add that color, and it's a really healthy green, which is in the beet family and was developed from beets. So that's kind of cool. All right, another plot with some really cute zinnias. Really underrated, amazing little cut flower that you can keep cutting. Down here, more and more, like this is a new top, will keep coming, but they just look great. And again, encourage healthy pollinators. This is a cosmos plant that doesn't have any flowers yet, but it is going to be huge, I think. All right, as we travel back, there's more of this plot and those scarlet runners that I was talking about in the sun. Might as well give them a little appreciation. These are a climbing bean that have a really beautiful flower that even hummingbirds will come to. And they make really nice green beans. So yeah, we've got a bit of a haze, I think, from the wildfires. Which is making everything a little pink in the sun. But it's a really nice night. Some eggplant. This is our rhubarb patch, which is like communal, which we also donate. We have started an herb patch. There's honestly so much to show. I could probably go for like an hour, but this is all herbs now. We've got a lot of chives gone to seed. We've got some random stuff in there too, but basils and thymes and sage. We've got some more plots here, some smaller plots. We'll go back there near the end and kind of finish down that way. But yeah, people are just growing all sorts of things. Greens. In the middle here we have a perennial garden, again attracting pollinators and birds. We had a bird nest over in our perennial grass, which was super cute. Just things we picked up for free. Things are coming and going with the season, but we do need to move this Jerusalem artichoke because it's absolutely huge and in the way, so it's got to find a new home, probably out in the orchard area. This is a really unique tomato that I noticed today. Is doing really, really crazy, but all of these are flower heads, so it has an incredible amount of flower heads. I'm not sure what variety it is, but that is going to have a lot of cherry tomatoes on it, maybe even currant tomatoes. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. We've got a cute little plot here, and more continuing that way. People have all sorts of supports they like to use to make vertical structures and things like that. Yeah, we have a lot of flowers in this center area. Excuse me, pup. And this runs around where we have some comfrey, which is a really good fertilizer. And this is actually a perennial flower, which I'm really excited about, and only gets super tall when it's this wet. So I'm excited to see it. But yeah, this is where we have a lot of perennials. We also have some currants. So these are some currant bushes and some other fruit like that around the garden. We're trying to add more perennial fruit. This is one of our stands of rain barrels that we fill up manually with a very long hose, and that we use to water this area when it's super hot. But we have had so much rain that we really have been able to kind of step back and let nature do that for us. Over here on the other side of our structure is where we have our big rainwater storage. So this one is actually attached to the gutter and fills up every time it rains, and it is absolutely full. And then this one we fill up manually, or we do like an overflow from this one. So that is that. We have like a little filling station here. No water is wasted. Anything dripping, anything like that, it goes into a bucket to be watered onto something. In other years, this year is just such a crazy blessing, honestly. Like, there's been years where we had to come out every day to water things, or they would just shrivel up and die. So thank you, rain. We will take more. A little tired of it, but we will take more. Back here is just kind of a road that goes around the garden and where we store various things before we use them. But we do a lot of our green roughage dumping back here, and there's some raspberries that are looking really, really good, which we will check out. Another plot here. These pole beans I wanted to show because they are incredible, super tall. They are all just supported on like one pole, so that makes it super easy. So if you're interested in growing these, just one pole, you don't even need a teepee. And this is Gary's plot, and he always gets a ton, and he just has about 6 poles in there, probably 3-4 plants each, and he will get pounds and pounds of beans. Some cute little cabbages in this plot. They look really stereotypically adorable. And then tomatillos over in Larissa's plot here are a highlight of this tour because she's done some staking, because I think they are getting absolutely huge. But they are massive. They are taller than me, and they are just full of tomatillos that will be ready. Still pretty hollow, but they're getting there. That one's pretty full. They'll kind of yellow up, and that's when they're ready to harvest. But the bumblebees and pollinators absolutely love tomatillo, and tomatillos do not get the same blight and issues as tomatoes. So if you like salsa verde or tomatillos roasted and cooked into things, I definitely recommend. They do really, really well in Ontario. Some nasturtiums that are a beautiful cream color in this plot. Always nice to plant, intermix things just to distract those nibbly bugs. But yeah, more volunteer sunflowers. This tall plant here is a hollyhock in like a deep burgundy color. Yeah, we just have and there's some currants we can kind of see that are still on here. Actually, these might be like black currants or gooseberries. We have just a random mix of berries around here. So this one I know for sure is like a red currant, and it did amazing this year. It's really big. So there's more harvest to come. It's only the end of July. Some more nasturtiums. They smell really fragrant tonight. Maybe the plants knew that they had to take that opportunity. What else? Yeah, we just have so many plots, so much going on. This is my row of calendula and dill. The calendula is closed up for the day because they are more sensitive than, just like sunflowers, they'll kind of close up. I'm hoping to save a lot of seed, and there's already some that's basically ready, and collect a lot of petals for drying and make some salves, and maybe some lip balm for the winter. Things like that. I have really great healing properties in the oil of the calendula, so that's why I'm growing it. They're edible. They can be ripped off and then sprinkled in a salad or on top of anything. So are bachelor buttons. I've got just a cute little clump here with some pink and purple and blue bachelor buttons, but the calendula row here is primarily dedicated to growing it for seed and for medicinal purposes, which is kind of cool. Yeah, a lot of this dill just self-seeded, so we're gonna leave it. But this cool red plant right here is amaranth. It can be grown for like a flower, which is really cool. You can grind it up and use it as a flower. Really nutritious, really cool looking. They get quite tall. This is not done growing, that's for sure. But yeah, I've got some cabbage down here, which is getting a little bit chewed, more than normal. Not super happy about that, but that's what happens, and you can only do so much when you're growing organically. But I put up these cedar poles to support my large tomato project this year, and beans and such other vertical growing things in the future. Definitely just need to go up to make the most out of all the space we have here. I grew a lot of fancy lettuce, if you followed along on any of my live streams, and most of it was eaten, and I've restarted many times and put a couple in the ground just to keep things going. This is some kohlrabi, which looks pretty cool. It's coming along. But the rest of the lettuce, actually I let go to seed because I'd never really done that before. And I had a pretty good diverse mix of lettuce. So I wanted to try it and see if I could save some seed and get some cool kind of speckly lettuce. A lot of it was really high quality. It took a long time to go to seed head, which is a good sign. Not sure if I'll save all of it, but some of these are really cool. That one a little bit darker, different leaf shapes and colors. This one has freckles, and so I'm hoping there's some cross-pollination that's happened, and I can get some really cool head lettuce out of these. They are surprisingly robust and tall, which again I'm gonna attribute to the rain we've been getting, but you see I have a lot of dill, which looks really nice. So I've got some canning ahead and some preserving and drying to do before they'll start to seed everywhere. But yeah, I'm excited. This, as a Swiss chard, is huge. I don't know what happened here, but it is up to my waist. Huge Swiss chard. I've got some others in here. I like to have a mix of colors, so I did plant some more because I only really had this kind of white and pink and was hoping to get more. But yeah, that's kind of how the grow garden is looking this year. I'll take you out to the raspberry berm. I mean, there's just so much to show. People growing all sorts of things, doing really well. We've got some purple beans in this plot that are coming along. I don't think they're whole beans, but we got some supports in there. This is where our maize normally is. Maize is on hold until after COVID. Just haven't had the manpower to plant it up and have it running this year, but I'm always hopeful for the next year. Shouldn't be too hard. We've mowed it a couple times. Otherwise it's full of wildflowers for now, so that'll do. But this whole area at the end of our garden, it gets quite wet over here in the spring, almost basically impossible to even walk on it. So we don't garden beyond this point because we did build a bit of a ditch. Otherwise, we have a bunch of raspberries in this berm area. All the way down. There's my dog rolling in something. Must be good. It's a lovely place for people and dogs. What are you doing? So yeah, raspberries out here looking mostly picked. We've got a couple varieties. I've planted some gold type raspberries here over the past couple of years, and those just keep going. The reds kind of have a season and then they stop, but then we have some other reds in here that keep going. Yeah, taste test is pretty good. A lot of these are like domestic varieties, but we got quite a bit. Not so many Japanese beetles this year. I mean, they're here. This is a Japanese beetle. Let me just flick him to the ground and kill him. But they are problematic. For whatever reason, they'll kind of just chew the tops of the raspberries completely off. But yeah, back here we have a patch that we keep taking plants from, and it just makes this patch larger and larger and larger, and we are getting equally, maybe even more fruit off this patch. But we have a ton of raspberries out here. I do have kind of a natural bug spray on, but otherwise there is a lot of mosquitoes back here. There's just a ton. Yeah, more raspberries back here, many to be picked. And we have a secondary patch down here. Nice view of the garden. It's really big. It's getting bigger every year. We're adjusting. We're adapting. And yeah, we're able to donate a sizable amount of food almost every day to local community pantries. Yeah, we've got some more raspberries over here. More that are ripe. We're just overrun. But yeah, this is the Grow Garden. We're located just north of Guelph. This road, you can see where that truck is Highway 6, or Gordon if you just stay on it. And then you turn onto our road, at the Marden intersection. And that's where we're at. So we're kind of right in between Guelph and Marden. Same climate. I find sometimes we get storms up here we don't get in the city, and vice versa. But hope you enjoyed this kind of all over the place garden tour. A lot of stuff going on. People growing a lot of things. Lots of different varieties. I'm sure they could tell you all about why they chose certain things and why they're doing them a certain way. A lot of our people grow enough of the food for their summer. Really supplements their grocery bill. And we still manage to donate. And we still manage to have leftovers and tomatoes on the ground and all that good stuff. So hope everyone is having a really good night. And I wish you all the best in your gardens or future gardens. And maybe I'll do an update in a month and give you another tour of the Grow Garden when everything is 4 to 5 feet taller than this. Yeah. All right. We'll end with like kind of semi-sunset coming in. Yeah. Everyone have a really great night, and I will see you next Wednesday with more gardening live streams. Bye.